after reality TV, is that when you went and got your law degree?
So it's funny. I say, when people say, did going on reality television change your life? I say, it did change my life in a lot of ways, but it didn't change the trajectory of my life.
Okay.
Even in my application video for Survivor, I said, I'm about to take the LSATs. I'm going to law school. This is what I'm going to do. And I did all of those things. So I filmed between junior and senior year of college, then went directly to law school after graduation. And then I took a semester off when I went on my second season, but that was the fall of my third year of law school. So I just graduated one semester late. And then I became a public defender right away. So it didn't change anything. I didn't make the decision. The decision had already been made basically before reality TV, but then became a public defender, which was my dream job.
It was. Okay. So I was going to ask you, did you always like the underdog or
Oh,
someone
yeah.
that you felt like you needed to help them or speak for them because they couldn't necessarily speak for themselves?
Absolutely, because the people that I represent as a public defender are people who truly need my help, people who often have no one else except for me fighting for them. And it's people who are typically from marginalized communities. All of my clients are indigent, they can't afford to hire a lawyer. And so it's a lot of it's low income folks, but it's people, a lot of the people who get charged with crimes. It's like Black and brown people, people who are LGBTQIA, people with disabilities, people who are immigrants, people who really genuinely need a lawyer, a really good lawyer fighting for them, but they can't afford to hire one. And so, it was definitely something that always appealed to me. And I wanted to fight on behalf of individuals who needed my help.
So I'm just curious, that group of people that you're fighting for, did you find that there was, I mean, besides not having the money to do it, was there something in common or were they all different? I think people assume that people that have a public defender have a lower IQ or, just don't know what's going on or will kind of just are part of the system and float around. Like, what is it that you saw with the people you were defending?
Well, first of all, it's everyone is totally different and unique and individual. And it's one of the things that's so engaging and fascinating about the job is that
Mm,
there are no two cases that are alike. Even if I've represented, hundreds of people who've been charged with the same crime, every case is different because every individual is unique. And some of these clients have, are truly brilliant who
mm.
have just ended up in bad circumstances, things that you couldn't really even imagine. I had clients who were, I mean, one client in particular comes to mind who was really like a leader in a gang in the Bloods,
Oh my
and
God.
he kind of made his way up to become a gang leader because he was so smart and so charismatic. And I mean, this guy could have been a Fortune 500 CEO. He could have been a politician. He just was magnetic. Everyone flocked to him, wanted to do whatever he wanted. I mean, he was brilliant, brilliant, well spoken. He would write me these long letters. I mean, he was a great writer, so smart. And it was just kind of the circumstance that he grew up in led to him being gang affiliated. And then he worked his way up. But I think he would have made his way to the top of whatever organization he was a part of.
Right. It's interesting you say that. I had Norm Pattis on, who is a criminal defense attorney who's represented people like Alex Jones all the way to some major criminals, right? And I asked him how he sleeps at night because a lot of the people that he represents are people that people really have a strong reaction about, don't like, or whatever. And he said he doesn't sleep at night. It's really hard for him, but he has found that the way he gets through it is similar to you. He really wanted to represent the people who needed help because they were completely alone and he had felt alone as a child and he knew that he wanted to do that. But he did say it was very hard for him sometimes to represent people who had done terrible things. He said he would never ask them the truth, and I found that fascinating. And then he said it was interesting that they may have done one thing that was terrible or were accused of something terrible, but they had these qualities that made them fascinating and interesting, and they had gone down the wrong path or had the wrong circumstances, and it just affected the outcome. And very similar to you, just he really loved what he did.
Yeah. And I think in so many of those circumstances, the thing that people don't realize is that abuse is cyclical. If
Mm,
someone is abused as a child, the chances that they will grow up and become an adult who abuses people are so high, especially without a ton of resources, a ton of therapy, a ton of all these things that would help you kind of get past childhood trauma.
mm.
Without that, the chances that someone who's abused as a child will grow up and become an adult who is abusive are just almost inevitable. And so
Right.
it's like but the horrors that some of my clients have been through, the stories that they've told me about their childhood, about being abused physically, about being abused sexually and emotionally, just really horrific things, about being zip tied and left in a trash can outside overnight,
Mm.
about being burned, about being, by their own family members, about being abused. I mean, it's just things that are so beyond the imagination of most people, just truly horrifying. And when they grew up and became people who then were abusive in some way, it was like they almost didn't even choose that. It was just
Right.
an inevitability. Uh,
Oh,
but but I mean, I think in terms of sleeping at night, as a public defender, it's not like I'm representing people like other criminal defense attorneys who are making those choices. I'm standing up on behalf of the United States Constitution every day. I'm making sure that the prosecution doesn't just railroad people who can't afford legal representation, making sure that their rights are that somebody's fighting for their rights, making sure that they weren't subjected to unreasonable searches and seizures, that they weren't
yeah.
forced into confessing without being given their Miranda warnings, making sure that they weren't, abused by the police in some way. So I'm fighting in a way that I sleep. I mean, I'm not a great sleeper to begin with, but I mean, I don't think that the the representation of my clients is impacting my sleep in the same way as, some other people.
Yeah, yeah, right. No, and I'm not suggesting that these are only criminals, right? So what kind of cases were you seeing? Listen, I know of plenty people in family court, wives who have no money and can't, represent themselves. What were you seeing mostly in the people that came through your doors?
So because we just pick up cases, in arraignments of whoever's been arrested in the last 24 hours, I could be representing someone for literally any crime you can possibly imagine. Anything from the lowest low level, excuse my language, bullshit misdemeanor violation, all the way up
Mhm.
through the most serious cases where someone might be facing life in prison.
And as you were doing these cases, what did you see about the system that you were working in?
I mean, the system is so oppressive. It's
Mhm.
violent, it's brutal. It doesn't take human beings into consideration. It's so dehumanizing, truly, and it just grinds people up. It just grinds them up and spits them out. It's a revolving door. It's like it certainly doesn't mete out justice. When
Yeah.
people say, "Oh, it's the justice system," I say it's really not, because there's certainly not justice for all. It's a really, really messed up system that is just so harmful to so many people.
Yeah, so it's interesting because I've been watching your stuff on social media for a while, and it seems like a lot of people say the system is broken. I feel like from your conversation pieces, it doesn't seem like the system is broken. It was built that way. And, why do you think it was built that way? I mean, listen, I've been through the system through my divorce, through parenting, stuff like that. And I'm like, how are these people's rights? Like, I don't get it. Why do the judges not pay attention to things that seem like common sense? Like you can, and I was on a grand jury duty or whatever, which I thought was the most fascinating thing I've ever been. And by the way, 30 days of hearing new trials, some like 3 or 4 times a day. And you're just like, oh my God, how did these people get here? And by the way, from the letter of the law, this person is going to go away for a very long time. But the intention behind it wasn't there. So I got so sucked into it. I couldn't do it anymore after the 30 days. I'm like, I can't even listen to these things. It upsets me so much.
I know it's horrible. Well, first of all, thank you for serving, because, a lot of people think, oh, how can I get out of jury duty or grand jury duty? How can I just not have to serve? But the thing is, we really need people who are thoughtful, who are people who would consider what they hear and really make these determinations with
Yeah.
understanding the gravity of the situation and that people's lives are at stake here. So thank you for your service. And I would encourage everyone to serve on a jury or a grand jury, because it really is fascinating. Most
I
people.
would encourage it too. I learned a lot and I was enthralled. I really was. I
Yeah.
was there taking notes. I was so interested and I learned so much about people going undercover and what happens, especially in Manhattan. And by the way, side note, how do those policemen go undercover like that and go live a normal life? They are like embedded in drug dens and how do they cannot be not doing drugs.
I mean, they are professional liars. That's what I tell people. Undercover police officers are literally professional liars. It's some of the most, I think, listen, I'm not saying that there's never a time when they, you know, when they don't do important work, but for the most part, I think a lot of the targeting that undercover police officers do is really disgusting, and it
Yeah.
preys on people. You know, I've had an undercover prey on a client of mine who was coming out of his methadone clinic. This is someone who is dealing with a substance use disorder, who has been in that situation where they've been dope sick, where they couldn't get a hold of
Mm.
something. The undercover comes up to him, fake crusted vomit on his sweatshirt, just being like, please help me out, help me out. My client's like, I don't sell. I'm sorry, man. I can't. I don't sell. I'm not a seller. I'm just here to get my, and he's like, please, please, you've been here. Please, man. Like, you know what this is like. I'm so dope sick. And the client's finally like, okay, fine, here, you can have one pill of my prescription of Xanax. And the guy's like, okay, here, take $20. And he's like, no, it's okay, man. Just pay it forward, help somebody else out one day. And he's like, no, no, I insist, I insist. And he's like, okay, fine. Then attack team descends on my client, arrests him for felony sale of a narcotic to an undercover police officer, and my client's facing, years in state prison.
Oh my God.
And we actually took that case to trial, and said that it was entrapment. And the jury, there's a very high standard for entrapment. The jury found that it was not entrapment, and client went to prison.
Yeah. And also probably because they just thought he was a drug addict and didn't care too much about what
Yeah,
happened.
I
I
know.
mean, it's
So,
terrible.
so yeah, so when I say like the system is not broken, it's operating exactly as designed, this is what I'm talking about. This is a
Hmm.
system that is not there to actually keep our city safe, to actually hold people accountable for the harms that they cause. It's just one that really targets and preys on the weakest, most vulnerable people. And it's, in order to keep the powerful in power. It's,
Yeah.
perpetuates white supremacy. It does all these things that that are like the ultimate underlying goals of our criminal legal system. And so, seeing the system as it is it can be very depressing.